The release of Baltimore Ravens star Ray Rice from the team after a video surfaced of him punching his then fiancée inside an Atlantic City hotel has brought the issue and concerns surrounding domestic violence to the center of attention. What are the warning signs to look for, and how can you remove yourself from a dangerous situation? Joining us this morning with more information is Cindy Crane, a psychotherapist with more. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Annie.
It's good to see you again. So, the situation with Ray Rice is that they did have video of the domestic violence taking place,
Yeah.
but the scary truth is a lot of these cases go unreported, and so we don't really have an exact figure on how often this happens, but we know it happens. It's serious, and what can you offer up? The fact that, you know, why is it that women do not report the cases? What's the thinking behind that?
When women or men are in an abusive situation, it's not always obvious, and that sounds counterintuitive, but there is a cycle to abuse that sometimes keeps us stuck, and we start to forget we have options to leave the situation.
I'm so glad you mentioned men, because it is men also that get abused. It does not discriminate. It's people of all ages.
Yes, definitely. Across all socioeconomic, gender lines, there is no distinction. There's no discrimination. And in fact, nearly 1 million men a year are abused. However, it's really, 1 in 4 women will be abused in their lifetime. It's by far more women, and particularly in intimate relationships. So, and we know that of those women, the majority of women are between the ages of 20 and 24, and there's a reason for that. It's that our prefrontal lobes haven't finished growing. We are most vulnerable to not seeing abstract information, and so we don't necessarily see it coming as much. And of course, there's not as much experience in repetitive abuse. Violence, though, does tend to be repetitive, and although I say here that evidence is obvious and acute, it's just as important to know that sometimes the evidence is also discrete, and it is internal injury, it is UTIs, pelvic pain, and from a mental health standpoint, chronic, subtle, or sometimes obvious PTSD symptoms totally fits that model of PTSD, and I see that in my practice.
Well, oftentimes you hear the victims of domestic violence say, you know, it all started with a grab of the arm. A push, and it escalates over time, right? So what are the warning signs of someone who is being abusive to you?
Warning signs include emotional abuse as well as physical abuse, and it's repetitive in its nature. So you want to notice where there is initial abuse, and then the tension builds. This is the cycle. The tension builds. They test to see how far they can go with us. And then there's the makeup, honeymoon period, and then I'm so sorry it happened, and then again, act as if nothing happens. But to your point initially, maybe one of the biggest indicators is if someone has been raised in a household where there's violence, they're multiple times more likely to be abusers themselves or to be drawn to abusers.
Right.
So it's generational.
And it needs to stop. Now, the case with Ray Rice, Janae actually put out a statement on her Instagram saying, because they got married, it happened when they were dating, she basically said, we have moved past this, we've got the counseling that we needed. Is it possible for a couple to move on?
Yes. It is tricky if the situation is so insidious that we don't realize how we've absorbed it sort of in our DNA. But if you have a qualified therapist who is familiar with domestic violence, there is a way to recognize and lean in the emotional moment and do something different. Change is difficult, even good change, but to not react viscerally can change the pattern and stop it sooner. And we know about anything having to do with mental or physical health, the sooner we can cut into it, the more likely we are to change the trajectory and improve the situation.
Okay, and your best advice for reporting it?
It's really important to tell others. My best advice is if you have even a question about whether you're in a domestic abuse situation or someone you know, call the National Domestic Hotline, and I really want people to remember the number is 1-800-799-SAFE.
Thank you so much, Cindy,
Thank
as
you.
always.
Yeah.